Hey there, this is Molly. Welcome back to my YouTube channel as we take a look at the Gemini full moon lunar eclipse happening on November 30th, 2020 at 4:30 a.m. That is Eastern Standard Time, so be sure and adjust for your location on the planet. Let's take a look at this chart and talk through it a bit because there's some important things to be aware of about this specific energy. So first of all, you want to look at where you have this full moon occurring in your natal chart. It's happening exactly at 8 degrees of Gemini, 38 minutes, and we round up to 9 degrees of Gemini. It's important to note as well that this is the first Gemini eclipse since 2012. And back then, the South Node was in Gemini. Now, with this lunar eclipse, we have the North Node in Gemini, and the North Node is growth, development, new paths, things we're learning, things we're coming to understand about what is possible. So there is energy in this full moon lunar eclipse of growth, stretching ourselves, and the theme that's very strong is one of choices. Gemini is associated with the twins, and that means that it's also the energy of duality, options, two choices, two paths, two directions, two things that you're deciding between. All of this can be very strong at this time, but what the energy is actually strongly supporting is the higher choice. The choice you haven't made before, the new direction, what maybe has uncertainty around it because it's something you haven't done before. And this energy is the two choices, one being a higher choice and one probably being a comfort choice, a comfort zone. So look at where you're being presented with options at 9 degrees of Gemini, and what is the area of growth for you? Where are you being asked to stretch? Now, we look at the ruler of Gemini, which is Mercury, which is still in Scorpio. Yes, still in Scorpio at 27 degrees here, 46 minutes. And this Mercury has had so much on its mind. This has been a heavy time for Mercury, processing, thinking, feeling, obsessing. How do I solve this? What do I do next? What is the correct thing? And it's been intense. It's also probably brought up a lot of fears. And so these fears can be preventing you from the higher choice, the new direction, or what you're ready to learn. Gemini is how we learn. We learn through information, through stimuli. We learn through talking, reading, sharing. It's how we take in information. But this Mercury has been bogged down by a very intense, I'm going to call it an emotional struggle, where the mind has maybe felt that there's been a lot of back and forth conflict. How do I move through this? What about this? What about that? And it's been intense because so many fears can come up when Mercury is in Scorpio. But that is actually the gift, because you see even the glyph here of Scorpio, it's the rising of energy. You go down into the deep despair or the dark places, and then you rise back up. And what you rise back up into, what you've learned about every planet's journey through Scorpio, has the potential to change you, to shift you, to have you see something in a new way. And that energy then goes into the next sign of Sagittarius, where the sun is, and forms new understandings around yourself, your world, your life, what's possible for you. Ultimately, restructures the foundation of your belief systems, should you choose that energy to work with, if that's your intention. If you're at that point where you're like, I'm just done with this fear, I'm just tired of feeling this way, it's been heavy, it's been loaded, I've been stuck, a lot of uncertainty, a sense of maybe not feeling calm, because there's angst here, there's a turmoil that's been happening. But what have you learned that is now a truth for you? And this is I'm going to call it a serious truth, something that is actually asking you to take what's in your mind and look at how this Mercury is working nicely, connecting nicely with Saturn, Jupiter in Capricorn. We'll even throw in the Pluto at 23 degrees. All these planets are direct. The next few weeks after this eclipse is truly a culmination of energies around 2020. And what this Mercury has the power to do is to really connect with the Capricorn understanding of how you're building your life. What is the long-term areas? It's like the energy of the long-term perspective on your life matters. What are you coming to understand right now, maybe about how you've lived your life, or how these unconscious fears can be worked through, loved, accepted? And this energy going to these Capricorn planets are about real world, definitely the real world, but also something I feel about the direction you're headed in that really truly matters to you. And when you rise up out of the limitations of the mind and you go to the long-term vantage point, what does it mean to live a good life? What does it mean to feel that your time on the planet has been well spent? That you've really stuck to what is important for you in this lifetime? And where have you limited yourself that you didn't see before? Because what I feel is that there's still an intensity in this chart as the 3 planets are still in Capricorn. But in mid-December, Saturn and Jupiter move into Aquarius. There's something about final understandings here. Especially as both Saturn and Jupiter will get to 29 degrees of Capricorn, which is the critical degree of completion, mastery, and graduation. There's something that is culminating and shifting. But I feel that this Mercury, because it's been so intense, there's an understanding of this energy moving across lifetimes. This is karma. This is the karma that we're working through. That's Saturn and Capricorn, the unresolved tasks, the unresolved work, what we need to really put time, energy, and effort into is one interpretation. And because this Mercury has been so intense, we've been really feeling a lot from other lifetimes that can even feel like they're haunting you, almost like these reoccurring life themes. And it's interesting how there's intensity and seriousness here, but Gemini wants to have fun. Gemini wants to do something light and open up and not take it all so seriously and just give yourself a mental break. And how are you really working with the power of the mind and remembering that you're in charge of it? You're in charge of it. And how do you want the mind to serve you and keep you open to what's possible and what's next, which can be hard to connect to based on the seriousness and intensity of this year? It can be that sense of, well, how am I supposed to let go or be light or have fun when there's a lot happening that I have to tend to? My obligations, the concerns of family, of responsibility, all of that is actually going to be energetically shifting in the few weeks after this eclipse. And this is a time to remember you always have choices. There's a higher choice here And there could probably be what we'd call a comfort zone choice that could be locked in to parts of this Mercury energy. Now, keep in mind, Venus is now in Scorpio as well. And this is where she's looking at her self-worth. And she's looking at where she can actually reprogram parts of her heart that were locked down out of fear, out of trauma, out of abuse, emotional wounding. So we still have these planets in Scorpio that aren't letting us off the hook just yet with some of these ongoing areas of ourselves. But the sun in Sagittarius is positive, optimistic, forward-thinking, a big thinker, wants us to expand, and is also connected with growth and learning and experiences that we have that form our views of the world. So the energy shift is very interesting because there's parts of ourselves that are still really tied to something. And then the shift here during eclipse season is opening us up to new options and choices that we didn't see before, that weren't ready. And now they're coming through. Now, an eclipse, especially a lunar eclipse, can be quite surprising and dynamic, and it can bring up a lot of new information in Gemini, unexpected news, things happening very quickly, things happening fast. You can see that this moon is also sextiling Chiron here, which is at 5 degrees of Aries retrograde. Chiron will be stationing direct in the middle of December. But it's showing us these new parts of ourselves. In fact, these new parts of ourselves that we've been working on are actually a key part of the equation here about the higher path and where to go. Neptune at 18 degrees of Pisces is squaring the North Node, which adds confusion. How is this possible? I'm not sure how to do this. The particulars might not be clear. And yet there's an energy here of strong movement with Mars now direct at 16 degrees of Aries, almost 17 degrees. And there's going to be a shift in December of more fire and air energy. So this is opening up the limitations of our minds and allowing us to see things in a new way where maybe you didn't feel like you had choices or options. The growth is important. The areas of staying open to new possibilities, new information, to watch how heavy the mind feels, but that there's a part of you, this is like not wanting to take a risk. It's like, I don't want to take that risk because I'm afraid of all this. And yet I feel like that's part of a shift here. Is that actually the risk you're taking is the higher path, the best path. And in fact, it's an opening into a whole new paradigm of potentials and energies, especially after these planets move out of Capricorn. So there's just something to start contemplating here. And again, this is a fast-moving energy. So there's something you could just come to understand. I feel it as like themes throughout throughout life. It feels that big, and that's part of the comfort zone. Okay, my whole life I've done this, or my whole life I've tried this, or wanted this, or played it safe, or stuck to this, or something has been a routine, but there's energy here that's opening you up to a new direction. And you could even relate this to 2012, when we had the last eclipse in Gemini, where it was a south node energy. And now this is a north node energy. Maybe it was a choice back in 2012, and now that choice is coming back around in 2020. Maybe it was an option back then, and you let it go, and now it's coming back around, and it's showing up as something that you can grasp again. I mean, this is going to be different for everybody, of course, but you can correlate it to these time periods and choices. And there's energy here. It's interesting. It's actually almost like we've been so much in this Capricorn energy all year. It's been so intense, so life-changing, as we all know. But it's changing in December. Are you willing to change? Are you willing to stay open? Gemini and Sagittarius are mutable signs. They adapt. They can stay flexible. They can stay open. They're independent. So it's looking at your ability to adapt to not only the changing world, but changing directions in your own growth. So there's a lot of interesting energies here because of usually the playfulness and the fun of Gemini and Sag. You know, let's have a party. Oh, wait, no, we can't because everything's on lockdown. Sorry, party's canceled. No fun for you. And then there's the energy of choice. Well, no, wait, I don't want anyone to tell me how to live my life or what my choices are. I can still have a party. I can still have some fun, whatever that means for me. So it's a recalibration of your choices within the circumstances of life. But there's also higher understandings here that we're learning. And Gemini is how we learn. So a lot here, and it's kind of awkward. It's an awkward energy. But it's how we're growing. It's a transitional energy as well. And we will talk more about what happens next, the new developments with the Sagittarius solar eclipse on December 14th. And I'll have a video for you on that shortly. So this is an interesting lunar eclipse, seeing something from a higher vantage point, being willing to make changes, being willing to let something go, which I feel is the comfort zone energies, the lower parts of ourselves that have wanted to stay in a grounded place. This is an opening. And of course, it's whatever your intention is, whatever you choose to do with it, but it's shifting us into some new experiences that we are ready for if that's the choice you want to make. So I hope this has given you some good things to think about and consider in your life. And as we close out this very powerful year in our world. Thank you so much for joining me. You can find out more about me, including the astrology classes I teach, below this video. Thank you so much for your shares, likes, subscribes, and comments. I greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you back here soon for our next video.